Welcome to the Investor Fuel Real Estate Investing Show, where I interview the nation's top real estate entrepreneurs, industry leaders, and other amazing entrepreneurs to help educate and inspire you to take your business and your life to the next level. My goal is to add tremendous value to you during every single episode of this show. If you get value, I'd love it if you subscribe on your favorite podcast player, subscribe on YouTube, and my very favorite, please share this with your community so we can impact even more entrepreneurs. Let's start today's show. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the show. Today, I'm here with Jason Lafferty. He's here in the DFW market with me, but he's an investor in RV parks. And so we've talked, I think I've done close to 2,000 podcasts now over the years. And I don't know if it's been a while since we talked about RV parks, if we ever have. I'm sure it's come up here and there. So a little bit of a niche. Of course, the riches are in the niches. So we're going to learn more about it today. Welcome to the show, Jason.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. How's it going, man?
Awesome.
Yeah. So all about RVs, we were kind of sharing stories about kind of how you got into it, and maybe tell us a little bit about your background and kind of what got you into the RV parks of all the things you could invest in, like what led you there.
Sure. Yeah. So just a lifelong entrepreneur, grew up going to a lot of campgrounds, KOAs, had a transport company back in the day, hauling repoed campers and driving repoed motorhomes. And I've always had a camper as an adult. So naturally an enthusiast, and then a little bit of real estate background. I was just trying to figure out how to get more in investing and with myself and what avenue to get into. So I was coming back from Port Aransas a few years ago and checking out these RV parks we were staying at. And I was like, how do I do this, but on a smaller scale, just try to get in, prove a proof of concept and get rolling. And then I was driving by Lake Whitney and just started, seeing little 10 or 20 site parks on the side of the highway and kind of thinking that might be an avenue. So I just started digging into it, what is the feasibility, where's the demand, how much does this cost, what type of loan to value do you need, what type of loan products are there for this stuff? And, and it just turned into an obsession.
Yeah. It's interesting as a entrepreneur, like it's hard to not see something and always be thinking about how you would do it or how they could do it better.
Right.
It's easy to see a lot of real estate things, but even RV parks, because we stayed at a bunch of RV parks. I told you we kind of had done a couple trips, and they're some of them are night and day. Like it's like, this is really well run. The Wi-Fi is great. Like all these things, and some of them are like, this place is a shithole. Like, let's just
lock your doors.
Instead of staying here for a week, like let's just make it a day and move on.
Right.
But you always like think of the business side too. Like obviously, we'll get into some of this, but like, are they big enough to have on-site management, or is it just something you do through an app, and like all these things, right? And so, yeah, that's cool. I think a lot of entrepreneurs are like that. Like you find something you're passionate about, or something that you use yourself, and you just kind of say, oh, I need a better solution for that, or I have a better way to do that. So that's
cool. How do you duplicate that?
Yeah. I would say a lot of real estate folks, like I've said this before, especially on the house side, like the novelty kind of wears off and you're like, it's just a business and I'm doing this to support whatever I want to do, but I'm kind of falling out of love with houses, because that happens eventually, at least for me it did. But let's talk about like, what I know there's different classes of RV parks. Like they're not all the same. We just kind of talked about that. And so kind of like, I own a bunch of multifamily and we talk about class A properties, class B, C properties. Even in real estate, I guess we talk about every area of real estate has different classes, but RV parks are no different, right?
Yeah, for sure. So there's really only like 3 different types of parks. You're either in transit, on your way somewhere else off interstate or something. You're a community, which is long-term. It's usually workforce housing next to a solar farm, power plant, oil, gas, or just construction or something like that. And then a destination. So you're by a lake, by a river, ocean, you are your own destination or something like that.
Yeah.
So once you kind of see what it is, then you know how to cater to those people. If they're monthly, you focus more on your dog park, your Wi-Fi, your laundry. If it's more short term, you focus more on easy coming in and out, checking in, checking out, and maybe try to have some other amenities if it's kids, extra picnic tables and fire pits and whatnot.
Yeah.
But in terms of like class, you can call it class A through almost E. Obviously the bottom is your like, you feel like you need a police escort to get in there. The trailer park boys and that type of stuff. All the way to class A is your resort, concrete pads, a little fountain with a little pond and resort pool, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then just kind of you're in between, and whether it's affordable housing, affordable housing could be, class B, somewhere in there as well.
Yeah. So do most investors focus on one of those kind of use cases or a class, or do they tend to do like, anything that makes sense, or is that something that people would specialize in?
I think everybody for parks has their own strategy, but for me, I think it's just so hyper local. You drop a pin, and then 5 or 10 miles around it, like you can go to the Chamber of Commerce to see what's drawing people to that area, and people want to like create something on what they think, but I think it's more important to create something based off the community and what's really drawing people in there.
Mm-hmm.
Because the only time you're really going to change the dynamic of an area is if you have 50 acres and you have some hiking trails and Sauna River and a petting zoo and you're creating a destination. And
Yeah.
if not, then you are it's outdoor hospitality, no matter how you look at it. So you're trying to create something that's going to cater to folks that are already going there.
Right. Yeah.
Using the feature of the land or just complementing, your avatar client that's going to come.
Yeah, because we've thought we have 104 acres in East Texas, and it's just come up before. Like, how do we? I mean, for us, it's been all expenses and no revenue. We're like, how do we monetize this thing? Because everything we've ever invested in, there's a monetization strategy, and for this, it's all expenses. But
Yeah,
we're like, well, we have that whole back half of the property, and we're like 15 miles from Canton, so they have the trade days. We're
Right.
like, oh, we could put a tiny home community. I'm like, I don't really want to manage that,
yeah, right.
But we've thought about it. But it's off the beaten path for sure.
Sure.
And there's RV parks. We're along I-20 in East Texas, and
Right.
there's RV parks all along there.
Yeah.
It's like, how are you going to
Especially the
compete
past
with
5
those
years.
guys that are driving right past there? Like, we're like way off. We're like 4 or 5 miles off of
Yeah.
I-20. Like, how's anybody going to even find
You'd have to
us?
create something more intimate, something,
Yeah.
just different than
Right.
your typical park, is they're 25 to 35 feet away from each other. So maybe something that's got like its own backyard, its own,
Yeah.
kind of vibe,
Yeah.
if you will.
Yeah. I don't think we're going to do that, but
Yeah, sure.
but because it's one of those things where obviously everybody's got an opportunity cost of their time. I
Absolutely.
certainly do. So,
Sure.
but so are a lot of owners? Is it my hunch is it's a lot of owner operators, like a lot of people that buy these things,
Mhm.
and I'm sure there's a lot of big corporate like setups as well. And so,
Sure.
what's the kind of layout of who typically runs
Yeah.
RV parks?
The National Association of Campground Owners, which is OHI now, their big stat has always been about 80% of parks are mom and pop owned. They've owned it for 20 plus years.
Yeah.
So if they don't have a succession plan with family or something, they're going to be selling anyways. And then parks have gotten a little sexy, just like anything else since COVID. So you see a lot more private equity and larger groups moving in as well. So to me, parks are like self-storage 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Now it's more systematized. When you build a subdivision, they already have plans for all the self-storage and all that.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's definitely a shift, and I don't know. It's pretty interesting.
A lot of the mom and pops are probably people that had an RV and traveled, and next thing you know, they own a park, or they stayed at a park and they saw a for sale sign or
Yeah.
something, and they got to know the owner, and I mean a lot of that type of stuff.
Retirement plan.
Yeah.
Like a little park, a little fix and flip park that I bought in West Texas. He bought it as a retirement plan, built it in '08 just for a little supplemental income, but cash only, no website, no credit cards whatsoever. You'd call him, and then he would drive from down the street and meet you with a little flashlight and ask you how your trip was. And then you pay him cash and go about your way. So we bought it, add some more sites, added the cabin, add some park-owned units because a lot of workers in the area, housing is an issue, and add some marketing. And, so just you see a lot of outdated systems and things you can quickly implement.
Yeah. Yeah. I saw that when I know I'm sure this has evolved. It's been a few years where we use an app where you just it's like a hotel. You just book your next, like we're going to go from here to there. What's around there where we can
Seeker,
stay.
RV Parky, there's
RV Parky is the one we used.
Yeah. That one's been around forever.
And you're just trying to look at your next location and what availability do they have. But some of them you could just tell some of them are much better run than others. Some of them are much better marketers than some of them don't market at all. They have no idea what they're doing. But yeah. So we're talking about kind of existing parks, but what about development? I think there's a lot, just like me, I've got some land. Maybe I could do this. There's probably a lot of people that think they can just go build a park, but
yeah.
What are the considerations for kind of development?
Well, I built 2 ground up mid-sized ones, and a third one's on its way. I would just say the first thing is whatever kind of timeline for making some money on that, just double it. Just like
that's like everything.
Yeah. Just be safe on your reserves and all that. So, but I mean, It's kind of similar of like we talked about earlier with investors on what they want to either build or buy and change there is that when you have a piece of land, you got to understand what are the features of it. Like I call it the Houston special, where they normally need a retention pond. So half the parks over there that are really successful, they have like a 2 or 5 acre pond in the middle and they build RV sites around it. And those are just gold because you can tell in the Google reviews, grandpa's over there, catch and release pond, and he's taking pictures with his grandson, while he's staying at the park. So, is there something like that that you can accent? Is there some way that you can save the trees if it's heavily treed? Because there's 80% of parks don't have any shade, and then 80% of the time people ask for shade, so
Hmm.
what is the feasibility in terms of the land itself and then the local area, 5, 10, 15 miles away? What's bringing people to the area? How are the other parks performing? What are they doing wrong? What can they do better? Just kind of really dig into it.
Yeah. And is it, I guess, it's like real estate. Some people, you could buy cheap houses in the hood, or you could buy nice houses in nice areas. So I guess some people probably are attracted to the cheap stuff, cheap land if they want to develop,
Hmm.
but those are the ones that are harder. I mean, they probably don't have as much proximity to something that's bringing in traffic and things. So you should probably, I mean, how do you look at that? You generally probably, like, the hardest
Yeah,
thing to do is get people to know you're there if you're
right.
in some far off land. So why not try to be close to something that's attraction drawing people in if you can?
Yeah. So the quickest, easiest one is look at like major metro areas like a magnet. The closer within an hour radius around those, DFW, Austin, or whatever, the closer the better, of course. And I see a lot of people they're like, well, this land over here is like half the cost per acre. And I'm like, if you build 60 sites, you can't even fill 20 of them. Then what are you doing? Like who
Right.
care? I would have paid 10 times as much for the land if I could have built 60 sites and stayed full.
Right. Right.
Or had double the amount that I could charge.
Yeah.
Because like in Fort Worth, there's some parks that are charging $1,000 a month. When you get over an hour away, they're 350 to 450 a month,
Hmm.
and that completely changes your dynamic and what you're trying to build, the cost to build, and your whole plan.
Yeah. So are there talk about you mentioned this a little bit ago, people that are like permanent residents
Hmm.
or maybe like for a season or something like that, depending on where you're at. So talk about that kind of avatar versus the person that's on a family trip and they've got a week or two that they're going to go RV around something or around
Sure.
some or from some area to some area. Like, I guess what percentage of the folks that are out there are like more of a permanent resident?
It's mostly just the area, So once you identify, because you could tell pretty quick, like you put a pinpoint where you want to build a park, you just go drive around, look at the other parks, you'll know.
Yeah.
And I think it's then you take that little onion layer off, and you'd be like, okay, well, who are they? So like my park in Whitney, there's a power plant, and there's several solar farms, so we'll definitely cater to them. And so those guys, they'll get brought in from Kentucky or Idaho or something, and the first thing they do is they go power plant, type in the address, and they type in RV park near me. So I just focus on Google Ads for that because who knows where they're coming from.
Right.
And then once you get those phone calls, then I just focus on they just want to come here and work 12 hours a day for the power plant 2 months and then leave. So what do they want? They want how do I just get in here, get out, cash app, leave me alone. I just check in. Like they want it simple as possible. So I just keep it just as simple, just cater to them.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess, and how do you know, like, density wise? I know one of the things with, we've owned some self storage, and I know there's always this, like, sometimes there's too much supply
Yeah.
of self storage. So how do you, like, some people would say, I don't want to be close to a competitor, but if they're full all the time, there's
Right.
demand, right? So how do you kind of balance that density of, I guess, demand?
That's my favorite part about parks because it's not like apartment complexes where you have all the data in the world.
Yeah.
You could just analyze it to death. But parks, it's more of a judgment, it's a feeling, it's a pulse. If I'm looking to go buy a park, I'll go there, go drive by the other parks and take notes, kind of get an idea for it. But I'll also go to the cafes and the restaurants, just talking to anybody like, hey, just go to the city hall, go to the Chamber of Commerce, and then you can really get a feel. You just start talking about it. You're like, yeah, you really know if they could do this, more people would come, or if you could build this, you can identify some needs. But if you drive by and there's 10 parks, half of them are half full, I mean, and it's a monthly park, it's pretty easy to calculate a monthly park versus a nightly one.
Hmm.
Nightly ones, you look on Saturday afternoon, how's that park performing? Monthly, you can just go there, all of them are half full. Why would I build another one? They're not full.
Right.
So I'd have to do something the same price or similar price and a lot better, a lot more expensive to you don't want to fight for the bottom dollar.
Right. Yeah, a race to the bottom, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's never good.
Yeah. So how about let's talk about kind of the operations. I think a lot of people are attracted to things like this and they forget that they actually have to run them, right?
Mhm.
And so I know with like I've done a lot of large multifamily syndications, and we typically are looking for stuff that's 100 plus units because you can have on-site management kind of in apartments like under that. You probably can't get on-site management, and that's a whole nother issue.
Sure.
But I guess at what level can you afford to have on-site management? And then let's talk some more about the kind of operations because I think a lot of folks just it's not a passive investment. I mean,
Yeah.
clearly, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think any real estate's really that passive, but
Right.
yeah,
I would think, it depends on what your strategy is. If you were looking for a good investment that you wanted more passive, then you might want to do something to where you can hire a park property management company. That's why we started one. And that's at least 60, 70 sites or more. And then it's, just like an apartment complex, having a property management company is, more hands off.
yeah,
But if you can have a very successful smaller park, I think a really good strategy is if you have a smaller park or a newer park is just setting up an agreement with somebody local. So hey, you can live here for free in exchange for a few hours a week worth of like helping me out, clean the showers, and until the park really launches or something. So there's different ways to get creative. You always just work with the community and
yeah,
and just kind of see how you can work together. Because there's plenty of people that are like, I can stay there for free, and all I got to do is clean showers a few times a week, and then tell you when somebody checks in or something, or if I need to flip a breaker, they're like, hell yeah. So it's great. It's a
right,
win-win, and they're happy to do it, and they're thankful, and I'm thankful.
yeah, yeah. So let's talk about the overall operations of the business. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts on this, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
And like, what are some of the things that people tend to, I guess, underestimate that's required to keep the keep the wheels turning?
On the maintenance side, obviously there's the grass, so having your systems for that, whether you're going to hire it out or have the equipment there and paying somebody to do it. Just having somebody lined up when you have a water leak, having a quick little plan because there's always going to be a breaker tripped or something that's pretty simple. That's just already know it's going to happen. So on the maintenance side, little things like that. Um, Everybody freaks out when Wi-Fi goes bad. So just having systems to be like, something happens, how do I reboot it really quick and have somebody that could just go do it so the world doesn't stop. And uh, operation side is just kind of you'll get a feel for what the common questions are, issues are, whether it's checking in, checking out, uh, if you're billing back for electric, checking their meters, and and mostly just money collection because everybody wants to use different apps or can't do this and that. So it's mostly just creating systems, SOPs, and tailored to
Yeah.
each park.
Yeah. A lot of, I guess, and some of those things can be done centrally. Like you own several.
Mm-hmm.
If you just own one, it wouldn't really matter, I guess. But if you have different parks around, you can do the money stuff. Some of the support stuff could probably be done centrally, right? How
Mm-hmm.
do you kind of, I mean, that's where some of the efficiencies, I guess, start to come in of owning multiple parks and
Yeah,
being an operator versus just somebody that was their retirement plan, right?
yeah, yeah. So you have your on-site. You always want to have a good on-site person that you can communicate with pretty easily for for the physical things. Like I have cameras in all the parks, so often something happens to Wi-Fi, they just have to go there and press the blue button and then hit reset, and then cameras are back on.
Yeah.
So just figuring out what those top 10 checklist things are going to be that
Mm-hmm.
you don't have to physically drive out there to do that, and then delegate that to the on-site person. So just getting
Mm-hmm.
ready, getting ahead of it, and then remotely, like collecting money. I usually just text message in Cash App is for a lot of times, and then we'll obviously use the booking software as well. So
Yeah. Yeah. So I have a couple more questions on the development side. So what if you develop something from scratch, like what all you have to do? Obviously, you got to run electricity to a bunch of sites. You've got a septic system in there. Like, what are some of the? I mean, this is probably one of the cheaper things to develop, I would assume, because there's no, there's no
no
not a
vertical.
lot of structures.
Yeah,
But yeah,
yeah. So yeah, water, sewer, electric. Get your utilities in. Sometimes you can get city sewer, which is awesome. But if not, then you're pretty much cutting in your roads and then deciding in your paths, deciding on if you want to do a mix of gravel, a little step up would be asphalt, and ultimately concrete. So it's kind of figuring out which park or style you want to build, and then amenities for sure, because you always want a clubhouse. A lot of counties are starting to require a certain amount of feet in between the spaces and a certain amount of bathrooms per RV sites, and every county's different, but so usually you can get like a 18 by 30 clubhouse that has a few showers, a little laundry room, and an office. So you'll count on that. dog park, and whatever kind of amenities that you can make happen with it.
Yeah.
Focus on your Wi-Fi infrastructure for sure.
Yeah.
That's a learning curve.
I know when we rented, like we're so addicted to being, as an entrepreneur, especially like as long as I can be online, I don't really care.
Right.
And we went up to our first stop when we did this first trip in an RV. I was like, as long as I can get online, I'll be fine. We went up to Yellowstone. We stayed right outside of West Yellowstone, and the Wi-Fi was so good. We were streaming like Netflix and watching movies and stuff at night. And I was like, I didn't expect this at all. I thought we were
Yeah.
going to be like shut off. And then, of course, every park's
Yeah.
a little bit different.
Sure.
Yeah, but yeah, I can see how important that. I mean, because honestly, if I didn't have that, I would have been itching to like move to the next place. Like, hopefully, it's better at the next place. You know?
Yeah.
And there were places that didn't have Wi-Fi at all, so you never know.
Yeah. I think it's getting a lot better with, Starlink for satellite, and
Yeah.
when because there's only so much infrastructure that a place could have. So
Right. Probably a lot of people have their own Starlink if they're traveling. If the internet's that important to you.
yeah.
I have it out of my ranch. It's better than the Wi-Fi here at the office or at my home in town here. So it's great.
Yeah. Yeah. You're not going to get 1 gig out of it, but you're not going to have intermittent issues.
Right.
It's consistent. It's going to be.
Yeah. And I remember the other issue for me is like, as long as I almost never have to back up, I'll be fine. Because I hadn't towed it was like a 32-foot bumper pole.
Oh yeah.
I'd never had to.
It's a great argument starter.
I'd never towed anything before. So I always am trying to get a pad that we can pull through. That's not like I got to pull in and back out.
Oh yeah.
And then eventually,
They're desirable.
I kept going down a road. This was in around Durango, Colorado, and it said like dead end road. I was like, it doesn't look like it's going to dead end. It's going to keep going, and then eventually it did dead end, and I had to like do a jackknife thing on some road to kind of.
Oh yeah.
And so
where spheres get
bottom that
stuck
thing
and-
out. Oh
yeah.
yeah. It was but it was a rental, so
That's what insurance is for.
That's right. Yep. So, what is you talked about a little bit about counties, and what are some of the typical like how willing are a lot of, I mean, so when we built a house out in the country, like we didn't have to get permits, like nobody even cared.
Yeah.
But like let's talk a little bit about kind of the regulations or stuff that kind of govern these things, whether it's starting a new one or adding on or whatever. Like, what does that typically look like?
Acquisition is just going and talking to them. Like I don't try to skate around anything. If you're going to buy something, it's like we're buying one in East Texas, and I just went up there and their requirements. I was like, so are we good? We talked about one that's 24 sites, city sewer. We wanted to add 40 more, and we're just making sure that they didn't have any problems with the expansion. And so we went over things and with the sewer guy with the city, and I was like, sounds like we're good. The permit's $3,000. You guys don't have any objections. We looked at the water line. He's like, whoa, 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 whoa. You got to drive out. We got to meet you first. I was like, so you're basing your decision on if you like me when you meet me, if you're going to give me a permit or not? I'm like, whatever, but I'll come out there. You want to go get some barbecue and talk about it?
Right.
But that's what they based it off of. But you'll know pretty quickly because I mean they've had these conversations. A lot of counties have implemented RV park specific rules a ton the past two years that they didn't have before, and so you'll know. Like if you look at a map, Hood County around Granbury, it's great for Airbnbs, market, vacation area, but there's hardly any RV parks. And years ago they put in all these crazy rules. They don't want them, and they're so you're not going to get a permit. So I was looking into park in Baytown by Houston, and they have if it's an RV park, there's regardless of what you do or how it's zoned, there's 2 layers of approval that has to get through city council. And I talked to him and I was like, so if we do everything perfect, we have a fancy resort, what are the chances you think? She's like, it's not going to happen. There's no new parks in 5 years, and I'm not supposed to tell you this, but it's not going to happen. So I'm like, all right, well, check that one off. We're not going to go there. But I think you just go there and talk to them, and I always start off with, we're not building a trailer park. We're trying to do something a little bit nice, not overcharge the community, something that would be good for the community. You just start with that, and they're like, oh, and you'll find out pretty quick.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there overall, I know like during COVID, obviously RVing was kind of hot, like, cause people were just like, hey, if I can work remote, like I'm going to hit the road. Right.
Yeah.
And I think I have a sense, cause I know, cause we started looking at RVs, and there was like no inventory, right? And then like a few years later, the lots are like packed at the gills, and so I mean, you have these market cycles. Of course, COVID was a weird anomaly that,
Yeah.
hopefully we never have to deal with again.
Right.
But what's the kind of demand for RV park like slots, I guess? And I guess it's riding the wave a little bit with the baby boomers as well. I mean,
Yeah.
what are some kind of things that drive the market cycle, would you say?
Well, as we're still, I think, on the tail end of COVID, because like you touched on, it was a spike. Dealerships were out of inventory. There was a waiting list to get new
Yeah.
RVs, and then after the new wore off, and you know, a large portion of people, you tried it for a year, and you're like, it's not for me, and then flooded the
Sell 'em.
market, and
Yep.
then at the tail end of COVID. So during that time, I mean, I can remember one guy, 2022 or so, he called 40 parks around Dallas before one was open. But now you call and there's a lot more vacancy. So it's
Yeah.
definitely a wave. You'll see a lot more people talking about like, hey, my numbers aren't where they at. So now they're focusing more on marketing because before it was just, we're just booked up. Who cares? We don't need to do any marketing.
Yeah.
So it's definitely overall needing more parks generally to keep up with the demand, but you're starting to see a lot of saturation.
Yeah.
Like you'll see North Houston and Willis for the next 5 or 10 years. They're not allowing any more RV parks. They're just going to wait and think about it later. There's talks about that around Lake Texoma. No more RV parks until after that big uh,
They're
what's
putting
that
like a
fancy resort?
Hard Rock. They're doing
Yeah,
a bunch of Margaritaville, I think.
Margaritaville. That's one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a whole bunch of development up there.
So you're starting to see some saturation for sure.
Yeah.
Like you're around Canton, that little stretch around Tyler. There's probably 30 new parks in the past 5 years. I
Wow.
mean, like so those are some shifts, but I think a savvy investor just getting a little bit more in tune with local communities.
Yeah.
Half of every small Texas town, it's hard to find an affordable rental.
Yeah.
So if you're looking for parks like that, it wouldn't be that hard to tap into small, mid-sized ones.
And as a savvy investor, sometimes the opportunity is just to buy from the unsavvy investors.
Yeah.
They like tried it and like this sucks. Like I got to get me. I mean,
Yeah.
my first couple of rentals, that we bought, they were terrible. I was like, I just couldn't get out of those things fast enough. We lost money
Yeah.
on them, but I just there was a big learning lesson too. So I think there's probably a lot of people that are like, oh, this will be part of my retirement, and they don't realize how active it could be.
Yeah.
Or they have somebody I've got somebody, they're going to manage it all, and that person like quits, and they get pulled in.
Or out-of-state investors.
Right. Yeah.
I was working with these New York guys on this Houston property. They were running to the ground, just mismanaged, water leaks, just trash laying around, broken gate. I'm like, what are you guys doing? And so they wanted to sell it, and there was like, there's no way in heck that you're going to get that. And they have a balloon loan coming up in 2 years. Like, we have to figure it out. So I was trying to work with them to just kind of do a master lease to where I'll take over it. We have a pre-agreed upon sales price, and if we make anything over it, we both make some money kind of thing. Well, I'll take a little bit of risk. And I got it all the way to the lease agreement, and then they just kept getting greedy on every little turn, and so I didn't want to work with them. But to me, it was so simple. Like, get somebody, a couple of people on site. Their current guy was just sitting in his office like it's a hotel, just watching TV. I mean, it's a monthly park. You're like, what are you doing? Get your ass out there and go fix this water leak. The showers haven't been cleaned in a month.
Yeah.
There was a problem with security. It was East Houston, and it was a $50 sensor on the electric gate. Fix the freaking gate because people are complaining about people driving in the middle of the night. Just there was about 10 or 15 of those little things. Add some marketing, bring back propane sales because it was big in that area, and the value probably would have been 50% more in like 12 months.
Yeah. Yeah. What are some, when you go to buy a park or look at buying a park, what are some value add things you can do? Obviously some operational things like that. I know a lot of them have, you're looking for additional land to add more spots.
Yeah,
like
for sure.
That's probably some of the most common things.
Yeah. Yeah. Because if you got the demand and you have room to build more, then that's an easy recipe. It's just how do you pull it off?
Yeah.
But a lot of it's operational. Like you can tell in the Google reviews that self-sabotage management, Wi-Fi, there's always water leaks. They're always turning my water off. Then you'll know they have some infrastructure issues.
Mm-hmm.
And you can tell a lot of that from the Google reviews and really just looking at it.
Yeah. Yeah. So how do you find these things? I mean, you're not just necessarily, I mean, I guess there's directories where every RV park there is, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how do you market to owners? Like it's not exactly probably like single family, I'm guessing, but how do you market, how do you find deals?
Yeah. A lot of wholesalers and other people reach out to me. Part of our property management strategy is just reach out to owners and see if they need to reach their goals to exit or need some help running their park, and then naturally it will transition and be like, no, but I'll sell it. And so we'll sell some off market as well.
Yeah.
And so we're just calling them, talking to them.
Yeah.
And it's
because
easy
you could manage for them, or if they're like, man, I just want to sell this thing, you're like,
Yeah.
okay, well.
Yeah, or like if I could just get X for this, and you look at their numbers, and if it's not anywhere close to 10% cap rate, and you're not on the ocean, then it's based off your cap rate. So like, let's come up with a strategy to get you to that cap rate to where you can get that exit number, and then we both make some money. We're all happy.
Yeah, yeah. Where do you? What's kind of the future of RV parks? Are there any like trends that are coming on that are like there's more amenities, they're more of destination type things, or is it something other than that?
I think overall, affordable housing, that's never going to go away. It's never going to change. It's probably only going to get worse.
So more long term kind of folks.
Yeah. So I was working on developing a park north of Dallas, and I like this guy's idea, and I'm going to steal it. Is he would just have like little offices that you could rent, have a little Keyco and little operating things where you can rent it for an hour for your Zoom. So if you lived at a park and you had a meeting or something, or like this, you can go into there, kind of like a hotel has a little business center.
Yeah.
Just
was it
little
like
things.
a pod that you could get?
Yeah, just a little office. I think it was part of the clubhouse or whatever. But it was just your business center, like a hotel. So if you look at it, it's outdoor hospitality, whether it's monthly or destination. But you're seeing more gyms in there, and you can bring in yoga instructors because 67% of RVers are a little bit older and they got a dog, and you know what I mean. So just little things like that you could just go a little bit extra to kind of set yourself apart and just do better.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, Jason, if folks want to learn more about you or some of the stuff you're working on, or follow your story or whatever, where can they go?
Most of my stuff's just on Facebook, Jason Lafferty, and a website I'm working on rebranding is jasonvlafferty.com. So one of these days I'm gonna do a podcast like you, and get some YouTube stuff going. But.
Well, it's a I don't know if there's anybody else doing RV podcast, but it's an interesting asset class. I think people are always looking for. I don't say this is new, but it's niche-y enough to where there's not a ton of people doing it.
Yeah, like when I go to a local real estate networking group, I just put RV park stuff, and it's so easy to talk to people because it's a novelty. It's cute,
Yeah.
It's not the same old stuff. So
yeah, awesome. Well, you guys make sure you keep an eye on Jason. He's doing some really cool stuff. Thanks for joining us on the show today.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, great to see you again. So, guys, if you're interested in RV stuff, you should definitely be following Jason. There's a lot of ways to make money in real estate, right? And I think as a lot of us get older, if you don't have the RV bug, I know my wife and I talk about it all the time. We're going to be empty nesters at some point, and so we have the flexibility to kind of hit the road, and we love to travel, and so. We kind of were doing this thing where we were trying to hit as many national parks as we can. We kind of fell into that little niche there, but
plenty of gyms.
Yeah, that's right. It's amazing how much, how many amazing things for somebody that's traveled all over the world. It's amazing how much kind of natural beauty there is, even in the U.S., which is kind of our take on RVing. But appreciate you guys for joining us on the show. Hope you got some good value from today. See you on the next one.
Thanks for joining us for today's show. You can learn more about the amazing benefits of the Investor Fuel Mastermind community, including surrounding yourself with hundreds of other rock stars, 100% financing on your deals, and members-only discounts from vendors you're likely already using that, as a member of Investor Fuel, will save you more than the cost of your membership. Visit investorfuel.com to learn more. You can also check out the show's notes for access to free resources, how to get access to world-class lead generation, and even how to work with me directly one-on-one. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another episode. See you on the next show.